Welcome. Thanks for coming out today. My name is Jamie Hopper. I work in career development here at Full Sail. And how many people are familiar with this gentleman to my left? This is Mr. Darren Lynn Bousman, former Full Sail film grad, 2011 Hall of Fame inductee. And today we're going to talk about, how to get noticed in Hollywood. How many people have been to career development? Awesome. So definitely come and visit us. It's funny, when we were on campus, Darren was like, isn't that an apartment building? We're actually the building right across the street from this venue. So definitely come see us. A lot of the people that you see, helping with the event and tied to our guests for the Hall of Fame are career development advisors. So we'd love for you to come and visit us. So couple of things about Darren that I want to mention. Of course, you guys are all familiar with probably his credits. Writer-director of Saw 2, director of Saw 3 and 4, Repo, the Genetic Opera, Mother's Day. But I wanted to just throw out a couple of things that you might not be aware of or might not know about Darren. Hopefully this doesn't embarrass him, but a couple of things just real quick. How many gamers do we have in here? Any gamers? Awesome. So Darren is an avid gamer. Believe it or not, he has time to do things like how many?
He's referring to Words with Friends. I play Words with Friends. That's.
How many people like Uncharted? Oh, yes. So Darren has actually beat that entire game.
That's crazy? Not that cool. That's not that cool.
That's cool. He's actually playing Beyond Two Souls right now, and he loves Heavy Rain. So.
Yeah.
But and that's something you probably wouldn't know about this guy. Another thing too is he's a brilliant writer. Everybody knows about Saw 2, but he writes fast and he writes really good creative stuff. And he's sold so many scripts of projects that might get made and a lot of stuff that probably will never see the light of day. How many scripts did you sell this year? Or?
I've sold like 3 pitches and 2 scripts. But like as you said, 90% of what I do or sell will never get made, which we'll talk more about later.
Yeah. And it's funny, another thing that you might not know, Darren actually rapped a pitch to a Hollywood executive team one time to the song Wicked by Ice Cube.
To be fair, I was drunk when I did it.
But no, he's an absolute great guy, great spirit. We're happy to have him here, Darren Lynn Bousman. So Darren, let me ask you this. So what was your big break, man? Let's start there.
Well, first off, I'm kind of overwhelmed that people actually still care what I have to say and that people are actually in this room. So let's just lower your expectations right now. Just put them right down there. My first big break. A lot of you, I don't know if anyone was in here last year when I came and talked. So I'm apologizing right off the bat if I'm repeating myself. For those that don't know, I started... Saw 2 was the first thing you guys would probably know that I've done, but one of the kind of misnomers in Hollywood is you hear the term overnight success. I don't think I know anyone that's been an overnight success. And I think it's easy to look at what I did and say, oh, it was overnight. And the reality is, yeah, it was overnight. One day I didn't have Saw 2, and the next day I did have Saw 2. But I spent years in Hollywood prior to that, and the classic cliches that you guys might hear about. I was getting coffee, I was doing laundry, I was a driver, I was a PA, and I'll tell you funny, if you guys can research or on my website, I'll give you the 2-second version of everything before Saw 2. I had a lot of jobs and I was fired from a lot of jobs. I was fired from basically every job I ever had, from X-Files to Van Wilder to all of these other ridiculous things. But I got really frustrated with my time in Hollywood, and I'll give you more about that in a little bit, but I've been out there 3 or 4 years at that point, and literally I came out with a bunch of guys I met from Full Sail, and we all lived together, and it was a depressing time in the fact of financially. The classic thing of ramen every day, and luxury for me was having a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. So I got really angry and I got frustrated, and I was working at an agency at the time. Actually, I started the script when I was on the PA on Van Wilder and X-Files, but when I actually became an agent's assistant is when I actually took this script I wrote called The Desperate, and it was about my life in Hollywood being desperate, the desperation that I felt. And I basically used the resources that I had, lied, manipulated, and connived my way to get the screenplay sold. And what I did, I created a fake management company and a fake agency company. Because you have to think, when I started, it was way before everyone's smartphones and everything like that. I don't think you could do what I did now today because you can call bullshit immediately. All you have to do is get your iPhone out and Google, like my fake agency. But then it was not as prevalent. So I made fake letterhead, a fake agency, and I used the connections within the agency world, all the assistants, and I created fake hype on the script, The Desperate, that no one had ever read. And so prior to basically, a long story short, is a bidding war started on my script that no one had read because of all the fake lying that I have done, using all my friends as assistants to be like, it's the best thing we've ever read. You got to see this thing is amazing. This is amazing. And all of a sudden, my phone started ringing in the fake agency company, but I set up a voicemail box being like, we read The Desperate. We think it's amazing. We want to meet with Darren. But the funny thing was no one had read The Desperate, so it was all hype. And that was the thing that got my foot in the door to actually let people read the script. I circumvented the catch-22, which is you have to have an agent or manager to get your thing read. Well, I just made one up. And it's kind of what this thing's going to be about being creative in Hollywood. And so I got a phone call one afternoon from a producer by the name of Mark Berg. Mark Berg produced Saw 1, and this is long before Saw had ever hit the theaters. It was still it just played Sundance, so Saw was not Saw yet. And they called me and said, we just read your script, The Desperate. At that point, they really had. So we want to meet with you. So I met with them, and I basically convinced them to let me direct The Desperate. And again, this is a more conniving, fun story. My lawyer, I got a lawyer after the script actually went out. The script was good enough to actually get me the agent and lawyer at that point. And I was attached to direct The Desperate or any variation thereof. That was in the contract. The Desperate or any variation thereof. When they bought The Desperate, a few months later, they decided to turn it into Saw 2, and they wanted to hire a real director. They wanted to actually get someone that knew what they were doing. And so they thought they were going to be able to push me aside and get somebody else, but again, The Desperate or any variation. So Saw 2 was a variation, so they were kind of stuck with me at that point. And I was on a plane to Toronto a few months later. So what's crazy is, and I guess, looking back, it looks like an overnight success, but there were 4 years of crying myself to sleep in the fetal position every night in the bathtub with a bottle of scotch before that actually happened.
So you actually have a story about that. So when Saw
Scotch? I have a lot of stories about Scotch.
But when Saw 2 broke and you got billboards all over Hollywood and $100 million and then you get a phone call, but before that, what were you doing before you got that phone call?
Oh, the story about the bar I told last night?
Yeah.
So what's crazy is Saw 2 happened so quickly for me. And when Saw 2 was released and came out, I think there was a one-day premiere that I went to, and I got to travel a little bit and do some press, but nothing really changed in my life. I didn't make a lot of money on Saw 2. I was living in the same studio, shitty apartment, and it's kind of this whirlwind. You go in this amazing thing. You do Saw 2, and you're in Toronto, and you're directing these actors, and then it ends, and you're back to your life, and you're like, now what? So I'm literally crying myself to sleep, and I was actually in the bathtub again with a bottle of scotch, and the phone rings, and it was this guy on the other end goes, hey, Darren, you don't know me. My name's Eli Roth, and I knew Eli from Cabin Fever, and I was like, oh, hi. And he goes, listen, we want to invite you out tonight. And the phone, I hear a jostling of the phone, and this guy goes, Darren, this is Quentin Tarantino. What are you doing? Get down to this bar right now. And again, you have to understand, like, my life was so pathetic still at this point. I'm like, someone's f***ing with me. Like, this isn't real. And so I sat there for a good hour being like, am I really going to do this? Am I really going to go set myself up to be laughed at? And then I sobered up a little bit because remember I had the bottle of scotch. And I was like, f*** it, I'm going to go. I'm going to drive down there. So I went to this bar, and it was this really, really ridiculous dive bar in Hollywood. And I was like, no way these guys are here. And so I walk in the door, and there's like, I think there was still smoke in Los Angeles at that time. So there's smoke clouds, and there are people playing pool. And then all of a sudden, I see Quentin Tarantino at the back of the bar by himself, and he goes, Darren motherfucking Bousman, get your ass back here. And it was him, and it was this guy, Edgar Wright, who's another director, and Eli Roth. And it was this crazy, surreal moment that I was like, that was the first time that I actually felt, holy crap, this is amazing. Like, I've actually crossed over into doing and hanging out with people that I idolized. I mean, Quentin Tarantino, I remember when I was in Full Sail sitting in these seats, I had every book on Quentin Tarantino ever. I mean, that was in the time that, Pulp Fiction and all of this Jackie Brown and all that was coming out. So this guy was, still is, but this guy, I idolized this dude. And now I'm sitting at this place hanging out with them. So it was that was my first, I think, really surreal moment after the Saw thing broke.
Yeah, and it's almost like you never really make it all the way, right? You're always constantly hustling every time, even when you were on the Saw and that was getting successful and more.
Yeah, it's, one of the things that, and again, this is not to be discouraging to you out there, but one of the things that I wasn't prepared for, so I had some pretty big hits. Going from Saw 2 to Saw 3 to Saw 4, and I guess that my opinion was that the more movies I did, the easier it was going to get, and that's not the case at all. Literally, I still fall asleep in the bathtub with a bottle of scotch, crying myself to sleep because it never gets easier. It is a constant struggle every day. It's you can never feel comfortable because if you feel comfortable, you'll get walked over and squashed. And so it's a struggle every single day. Every single day I wake up, it's the same as it was before Saw 2. It's a fight every day.
Yeah. Is it because a lot of students will ask this, getting pigeonholed in a genre.
Yeah.
Do you ever get worried about, how is it to break in, like if you wanted to do a comedy right now?
Do you know what though? I hear this a lot from people about being pigeonholed. I don't care. I want to be pigeonholed because that means I'm working. So I'm not, at this point, that's a champagne problem. I'm only getting offered horror films, but that's better than not being offered any movie. So to me, the idea of, and that's why, I don't know if anyone here's seen the movie Repo, the genetic opera I did. But that was my answer and escape from the horror thing. It's like, I don't know how much different I can get. I go from doing 3 pretty intense Saw movies to doing a rock musical with Paris Hilton. That's about as yin to the yang as you can possibly get. So that was like kind of my, answer to that about being worried about being pigeonholed, was doing something completely different, which was doing this weird rock and roll opera.
Did you do music videos before Repo?
2 very bad music videos. A funny story, not funny, actually very sad and pathetic, but before I directed Saw 2, I had nothing. I literally had nothing. I directed a really bad short film when I was at Full Sail. And while I was at Full Sail, I thought I was goddamn Orson Welles. I thought I was amazing. But I directed this really bad short film that was a musical called Winter Follies. And I remember, I'll never forget this, I believe it was Dave Franco who I called right when I got Saw 2. I called Full Sail and I said, hide Winter Follies. Do not let this get out.
Right.
Someone hide it immediately, because I was so scared that someone was going to find Winter Follies and put it online and be like, this is the guy directing Saw 2. But at the time, I thought it was awesome, and I was really proud of what we did. And then I left Full Sail, and I did another short film with a bunch of Full Sail students called Butterfly Dreams, which, again, I thought it was this opus. I thought I was making like Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, and really I was making like an Uwe Boll, like really terrible thing. So when I got Saw 2, it was really weird because I really had nothing. I had nothing to show except these 2 kind of really pretentious short films. So then I went off and did a couple music videos. I did one for a band called Mudvayne, which actually was okay. That was for the Saw 2 soundtrack. And then I did another music video for a band called Static X. That's another funny story. That was another kind of break or notch in my belt for how I actually got Saw 2. I was working at a place called The Firm, and The Firm was at the time the biggest music management company in all of Los Angeles. They represented everybody from Korn to the Dixie Chicks to Enrique Iglesias. And this was the height of all of their careers. So, they had everybody. They also had Martin Scorsese, Leonardo DiCaprio. They had the biggest of the big. And I was working in the tape room, and what that basically meant, you guys have tape rooms here. I guess now everything's digital, but back in the day, I would be the guy that we would have banks of 50 VCRs, and I would have to dub all of the tapes as well as CDs. So let's say Limp Bizkit had a new album out, and the managers wanted to hear it. I would be the guy dubbing all the. It was a very monotonous, boring job, and again, I felt myself going stir crazy. I'm sitting in this place, and I literally just hate my life. And I'd been there for about a year, and I'd had the Desperate written at this point. And there was a music manager meeting every Monday morning, and my job was to sit in the music manager meeting, and literally, I'm not joking you, I would sit there for an hour and a half, and then eventually they would look to me and say, Darren, hit play, and I would have to just do that. I had to do that. So again, it was also demeaning as well, because I thought, I should be doing something more. This is not why I went to Full Sail, to hit play on a tape. So one afternoon, I'm sitting there, and the meeting had gone on and on. It was 2 hours in, and one of the main managers stands up and says, this is before anything had happened with me, said, okay, we have the Static X music video. The director fell out. Static X's, album wasn't selling as well as they hoped. We're going to go ahead and cancel the music video. And someone else says, why are we canceling it? He said, well, because we don't have time to get a new director or the budget to go out and find somebody. And I stood up, and it was like that one defining moment, I think, that changed my life. I stood up, and I see my boss going, no, 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 stop, 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 stop. And I go, I'll do it. And everyone in the room, it was like the classic thing, the music all stopped, everyone whipped over. And the main guy, Jeff Quantnitz, goes, who are you? And I said, my name is Darren Bousman. And he goes, what do you do? And I was like, I work in the tape room. And he goes, come see me after this meeting, please. And everyone was like, oh, like I was gonna get fired. And my boss looks at me and just shakes his head and was like, that's it, you're done. And so after the music manager meeting, I went in to Jeff Quantnitz's office, who was like the big of the big. And I go sitting there, and he goes, so what did you say? You'll do their music video? And I said, not only will I do it, I'll pay for it. I have a 3-ton grip truck. I have a 35mm camera package. I have an entire crew of people. I'll do it. And he sits there for a couple minutes and goes, all right, you have 7 days. I need it back on my desk in 7 days. Now, I had no grip truck. I had no crew, no camera package. So I call my mom and dad, and I said, guys, I know you just paid for Full Sail, and I know you're paying for my peanut butter and jelly sandwiches every day. I need to borrow $10,000. And I think I remember hearing my mother cry in the bathtub with a bottle of scotch. And they lent me some money, and I went out on the next couple of days and went on Craigslist and found a crew, got a camera package, and I went and shot the thing, paid for it myself. 7 days later, I dropped it on the desk of Jeff Quantnitz, and 2 weeks later, it was on Headbangers Ball. And that was the first real thing that I ever directed. And I guess that's kind of what today's thing is about. How do you get noticed in Hollywood? First thing I want to start off or preface this conversation with is don't listen to anything I say, because I have no idea what I'm talking about. Whatever I'm going to tell you guys right now is going to be obsolete the minute you guys walk out the door, because the entertainment industry is changing so quickly. The speech I gave last year is completely obsolete to what I'm going to say right now, and I guarantee by the end of the awards ceremony, it's going to be defunct again. So take everything I say with a grain of salt and laugh at me and don't listen to what I'm saying, because it probably will hold no prevalence to you. That being said, you guys, how many of you guys here are filmmakers or want to go out to Hollywood or be a writer or director? The vast majority of everyone here. Here is what I have learned and again, let me say something else. I am not an expert. and I've said this numerous times, I am a failure, not an expert. Failure is if you do the law of averages, for every one movie you see, I have 100 movies you don't see that either I was fired from, I couldn't get made, the financing fell through, the script was rejected. You guys see the 1%. You see the one time that actually something does make it through, I guess, the gauntlet of Hollywood. So it's all about a law of averages. And that law of averages is 99% of my day, it's failing. That's all I do. I sit there and I fail and I fail and I fail and I get calls of rejection and rejection and rejection. I go to actors who don't want to pick up the phone. He did the Saw movies? No. He did 11/11? That was abysmal. And so that's what I deal with most of my day. There's 1% of my day that something actually gets through. And that 1% then is Saw 2 or Mother's Day or the Barrens. So when I'm going to say anything, know that this is coming from a place of failing. That being said, success in Hollywood has nothing to do with creativity. It has nothing to do with how great your script is or how impressive your demo reel is. It has something to do with it, but that's not how you get movies. How you get movies is learning to deal with failure and getting back up and trying again and again and again and again. When I left Full Sail, I think there was 12 or 15 of us at Full Sail that had an idea that we were going to go to Hollywood and be a director. And most of the people in my class were more talented than me, better than me, had more knowledge than me. The difference between them and I is when I went to Hollywood, I refused to accept anything except what I wanted. I set a goal for myself and I said, I'm going to be a director. And I refused to even let it enter my head that that wasn't going to happen. And so I wake up every morning, I would set my alarm every morning at 7 o'clock, and I would set a goal. And I would say, how am I going to get to the end of my goal? How am I going to become a director today? And the problem was I refused. I set another goal, and I said, I will not take a job. I will not take any job unless it's going to further my career. And so what happened was some of these other people that went out there with me, who were more talented than me, said, you know what, money's tight. I'm going to go work at a bar. Money's tight. I'm going to go be a bouncer at a nightclub. Money's tight. I'm going to go be a gardener. And these people got more money than me. They became more successful financially than me. They were able to take the girls on the dates. They were able to buy nicer cars and go on vacations. I lived on a couch. And every morning, it's literally like being kicked in the balls. I would wake up and I would apply for jobs, and it was like being kicked in the balls. The difference between them and me is I kept getting back up, and I said, screw it, I'm not gonna let this take me down. And I would stand up and I'd do it again and again and again and again, where I was seeing a lot of my friends who would give up, and they would say, you know what, I can't be a bartender anymore, and 2 years have passed since they graduated school, and they became comfortable in their lives. They got married, they had kids, and those were choices they made. And I said, I'm not stopping until I get a movie. And 4 years later, Saw 2 happened, but it was not easy. It was the hardest thing in the world. And if I can make it in Hollywood, being not that talented, not that creative, not that smart, anyone in this room can. And I'm guaranteeing you the majority of you are better at filmmaking than I am. The difference is, will you be able to get up when you get kicked in the balls and you get rejected? And rejection is a terrible thing. I mean, you have to imagine, one of the things about being a filmmaker is you have to be able to cast a movie. And what that means is, movies are all dictated on foreign sales, the majority of them. What is your name worth? Well, if you're a first-time filmmaker, your name isn't worth anything. So then it's, who can you attach to your project? Well, now I have sort of a worth on my name, and I have to call actors and try to get actors to work with me, actors that I respect and admire. And every day I get rejected from these actors. No, we don't want to work with you. We don't like your movies. And you have to deal with this rejection day in and day out and be able to wake up every morning and say, screw it, I'm going to keep trying. And I think the first thing I recommend for those wanting to go to Hollywood is embrace failure. Take it, say yes, know what's going to happen to you, and be able to stick it out, because that's going to be the first thing that's going to separate you from everyone else. If you're able to get kicked in the balls and say, I don't care, and wake up the next morning and get ready for that kick again. Because if you do it enough times, all of a sudden, they're going to stop kicking you in the balls, and you're going to get that 1%. You're going to get the Saw 2 or the Barrens. So that's the first thing. But more importantly, it's about creativity. If you guys want to be a filmmaker, a writer, a director, it's all about how creative you are. And you got to think that when you're applying for a job, you're applying to be in a creative position. You need to be creative in the way that you apply to the job. Some of my very first things that I did, now again, the industry's changed quite a bit from 2001 when I actually went to Hollywood. But it used to be Craigslist, Mandy Jobs, all of these, and they were blind ads. And so you would get an ad that says, executive looking for an assistant, please fax resume to, and there's a phone number. And so 99.9% of the people would fax their resume to that phone number. But you gotta understand that for every one job in Hollywood, there's 50,000 people trying to vie for it. And so for a long time, I would do what they said. I would fax the resume to that thing. Never heard back from anyone. Then one afternoon, I had an idea. I said, you know what? I'm trying to be a director. I'm trying to be creative. Let's be creative in actually getting this job. So I did a reverse number lookup on the fax number. And I said, okay, this is owned by C2 Pictures. And I would do research. Okay, who owns C2 Pictures? And I found out a guy named Mario Kassar owned it. So I Googled Mario Kassar, IMDb'd him. Mario Kassar produced Terminator, Basic Instinct, Stargate. And so what I did was I called C2 and I said, hey, I was just on the phone with Human Resources and I got disconnected. Can I be transferred back to Human Resources? And they said, oh yeah, for the assistant job doing X, Y, and Z. So now I knew what the job was I was applying for. So instead of faxing my resume like everyone else did, I hired a messenger service, I hired a singing telegram, and I had my resume delivered to the place with a singing telegram in a refrigerator box wrapped in gold wrapping paper. Now, when you do this, all of a sudden, they're looking at a stack of faxes, 200 deep, and all of a sudden, this ridiculous singing telegram comes. I got noticed. I got the meeting, and I got the job. That is how I learned to break out of the monotony of Hollywood, of getting these jobs. And something else I'll tell you. And again, some of the things I'm going to say is going to go in stark contrast of what you've heard thus far. And that's why I say throw away everything I say and don't listen to it, because it might not work for you. But I think in the 13 years I've been in Hollywood, my resume maybe's helped me once. It's not about the resume. It's about your presentation of you, because you're selling yourself. That's what you're doing. You have to be a salesman. And I was saying, I had a roundtable yesterday, and I was talking about, I'm a con artist. That's what I am. 99.9% of my day is being a con artist and is selling ice to Eskimos. That's what you have to be able to do. You have to be able to bullshit your way into a room and make everyone in the room think that you are the shit. I mean, that is what your job is. You have to convince them, and pardon my French, and I know this is probably bad, that your shit doesn't stink, that it smells like roses. And that's what you do. You basically get into a room because you're basically asking a company to trust you with money. To say, we're gonna give you $100,000, $1 million, or $10 million. You need to trust them in your confidence that you have the ability to turn around a product and make it amazing. And that's what it was with Saw 2. I sat in a room with 15 executives at Lionsgate, and I sat there and I sold myself. It wasn't about the movie, it was about them trusting in me. And that's what the majority of filmmaking is. Another question for you. How many of you guys watch House of Cards? Okay, how many of you guys have seen season 2 of House of Cards? House of Cards is the closest relation to the industry that I can give you. I am Frank Underwood. Now, that being said, for those that don't understand it, it is a job of politicking. The directing, the writing business is a job of politicking. I don't want to discourage you and say that creativity isn't going to get you there. No, it will. But it's more than just being creative. It is knowing the right moves to make. It is knowing how you play one person against the other, or how you use one person's strength with the others. That is a lot of what I learned, and I didn't realize that leaving film school. I thought it was going to be, I have a great script, I have a great director's reel, Hollywood's going to open the doors, and that's not what happened. You have to learn that you have to play the game. If you're not willing to play the game, then it's going to be a hard road for you. But there are ways to circumvent the game or change the game. And that's what I have tried to do in my career. I had extreme luck with Saw 2, 3, and 4. I had extreme failure with Mother's Day, 11/11, and the Barrens. And so I said, I'm going to change the game. I don't like the way that it's being played. So I went off and made a movie called The Devil's Carnival. I'm not sure if anyone here has seen it, went to one of our road shows for it, but that was our kind of response to the state of the industry. And we were very successful in what we did. Now, I'll get into that in a minute. But I'm going to give you guys a couple of things. Can we flip over to my computer screen? So when you have a movie now, an idea, your task is to sell that idea to a studio, to a producer. But you have to understand, like the faxes I gave you earlier, every time you're trying to sell a movie to a studio or a producer, there's 1,000, 2,000, 5,000 other people's vying for that same position. So how do you get yourself noticed? How do you stand out from everyone else? So I'm going to pitch you an idea that I have of a movie. I'm going to tell you just the basic concept of it. It's called The Begotten. It's a movie that I want to make, and it is my nod to Rosemary's Baby. It is a conspiracy movie, and I'm a huge conspiracy theorist. I love government cover-ups, NSA, UFOs, Illuminati. I'm in love with that. So I wanted to make a movie around that. And so I found a writer that I really liked, and I pitched him this idea that I've had for years and years and years. And the idea is about this government cover-up called MKUltra. If you guys don't know about MKUltra, when you leave here, go Google it. It's fascinating stuff. But it's a very weird, obscure conspiracy theory. So I wanted to sell them this idea, so the first thing I did is made a treatment. I'm sure you guys all know what treatments are. It's basically a 10 to 12 page document that before you write the script allows those that are going to read it an overview of what it is. So most people, when they write a treatment, it's on MS Word, and they write a treatment and they send it off. And I was like, okay, that's not going to work for me. I've got to do something unique. I've got to do something different. So the first thing I did is I realized the genre I'm making. I'm going to make a conspiracy thing. So I need to make my treatment feel like it exists in the conspiracy world. So I'm going to show you the treatment in a second. But what I did was I went to a graphic design artist I know, and I said, I want to make the treatment look like a redacted government document. I want there to be weird case files inside it. I want there to put a video with it that feels like you shouldn't be watching it. And I want to set the mood for him prior to reading the script. And I sent it to his office with a guy in a suit, shades, classic Men in Black kind of thing. I had it wrapped in this weird stained paper that looked like it came out of a trash can, tied with like rope. And it shows up on his desk. And it was one of these things like you kind of wanted to push it in your trash can because it didn't look like you should have it. And so here is an example of the document that we sent. So if you just look at this, this is our treatment for the Begotten, that the whole thing comes in looking like a redacted document. So they're reading the treatment as opposed to reading an MS Word or something from an email. I immediately set it apart with this redacted document. So like something you might see if you were looking at classified files. But that wasn't enough. I said, okay, so they've got their attention with the redacted document, but I need to show them the movie I want to make. And so I went off and I shot a video. Now, I'm going to show you guys a couple of videos that I've used in my presentations. There are two completely different types. One of them is very easy to make. I think I spent $150 on this video. There's no original content. It's all things I pulled off YouTube. You too can do this. If you're going to try to sell an idea, you can make a video like this, and all it's going to do is if you want someone like me to read it, I hate reading scripts. I do not like reading 90-page scripts. It takes me hours and hours and hours unless I know I'm going to like it. So what I did was I made a 2-minute video to show the style and tone of the movie that I wanted to make to let him see what it was. So I'm going to show you an example of the video. Now again, this was all made just using YouTube clips.
We've all read about quote-unquote Manchurian candidates.
It's CIA experimentation, and through torture, you can basically create a second personality, basically a sleeper soldier.
Now, are we speaking here of MK Ultra?
The government is programming killers.
It's worse than you imagine.
And it's a culture of MK Ultra mind control rules in Hollywood.
Another former CIA agent says that Fidel Castro at one time was considered as a possible target for a Manchurian candidate.
Republican leaders warned the Obama administration is using mind control to manipulate all of us.
Thousands of government-sponsored experiments did take place at hospitals, universities, and military bases around our nation.
Experimentation on prisoners, experimentation on soldiers, experimentation on college students.
It would allow the government to use mind control to manipulate everything we do.
Some were unethical, not only by today's standards, but by the standards of the time in which they were conducted.
That voice may not be yours at all. It could be the government controlling your mind.
So there is something we put together in two afternoons. We just pulled clips off YouTube, and that goes with the script. So imagine you're Jason Blum, and you get a package on your thing delivered by a dude in like a Men in Black with this redacted military document, this video file, and the script. And immediately, this project raised to the top of the pile as opposed to a MS Word document with this irregular script. So that's the first thing. You need to stand out. You need to find a way to make yourself stand out from the masses. You're selling creativity, so be creative in your presentation. That is one example. The other example, which this is a harder thing to pull off because it requires money, it requires time, but now with the technology we have, with cell phones, with cameras you can go buy at Best Buy for a few $100s, and friends that have After Effects. I'm guessing you guys know people that are really well in After Effects or proficient in Maya or whatever. You can do the next thing. And this was a trailer for a movie that I'm about to go make. This was before we actually started filming the movie. I'm looking for financing, right? So when I'm looking for financing for something, I want to show them what it is they're going to be buying into. And I had this idea. And this idea is for a movie called Abattoir. Abattoir is a graphic novel that I created with a company called Radical Studios a few years back. And the basic premise is this. I wanted to make a new haunted house movie. I wanted to find a new and creative way to reinvent the haunted house genre. But here's the problem. When you have Insidious, when you have The Conjuring, you have all these movies that are just effing amazing, how do you do something new with the genre? So I came up with this idea about a kind of new take into the haunted house genre. It was about a man who over the course of 100 years, from the late 1800s, would basically go and find crime scenes where vicious tragedies took place, murders, rapes, home invasion, accidental deaths, such as houses catching on fire. He would buy the house and property and rip the crime scene out. So if someone slit their wrist in the bathtub, he would buy the house and take the bathroom completely out, brick by brick. If there was a fire in a house and the facade caught fire, he would remove the facade of the house. If a home invasion occurred, someone kicked in the door and executed a family in the living room, he would buy the house and take the living room out. And the idea is he's building a house of only rooms of death in the middle of this vast forest. And that's the basically hook into the movie Abattoir. So I wanted to shoot a trailer to basically kind of show what that was going to be. So I went together, we did this on one afternoon filming, another afternoon in green screen, and we shot this. Is there any way to lower the lights? I don't know if there is. If not, don't worry about it. Perfect. So here is Abattoir. So, abattoir. In both cases, they're two completely different types of trailers, but they're serving the same purpose. And that purpose is to be noticed, to do something unique and different, to put your project in front of a lot of other people's projects. And I think that one of the biggest pieces of advice I can give anyone out there is that if you're trying to sell something, sell it. Don't go in and hand someone and do the least amount of work. And I'll give you an example of something that just, okay, so I've walked around Full Sail now for 2 days, and people have come up and they've given me their demo reels, they've given me whatever. Where's Shay? So Shay, stand up for a second. So Shay walked up to me and knew that I was a big fan of conspiracy theories, and she gave me her short film in a conspiracy theory top secret like thing. Now, I'm actually going to watch this. You know why I'm going to watch it? Because she put effort into doing something. It wasn't like, hey, Mr. Bousman, watch this and hand it to me. She actually put time and energy into creating something. This is a microcosm of Hollywood. Is she wants to be creative, and she was creative in a presentation and giving me something. So when you're going out there, be Hollywood, Atlanta, Louisiana, staying in Florida, be creative. Put the extra energy in. You want to be a filmmaker, you want to be a director, you want to be in this world, you got to set yourself apart from the thousands and thousands and thousands of other people that are out there. These are just two examples, and I still have to do it. I've made 8 movies now, and I still have to do it. And so unless you're Steven Spielberg or unless you're Quentin Tarantino, you have to do something, because the state of the industry, like I said, forget everything I'm telling you right now, it changes. It changes so quickly. It used to be that filmmaking, being a filmmaker, was the top of you can do. Now, everyone's jumping ship from filmmaking. They want to do TV. Everyone wants to, I don't know if you guys watch True Detective. That's amazing. That show is like the future in my mind of what movies are going to be and films are going to be and the entertainment industry is going to be. You look at Game of Thrones, you look at all of these shows. So within a few year period of time, everything shifted. It used to be you had to wait every week for a new episode to air. Now you have binge watching. They release every episode of Orange is the New Black, every episode of House of Cards at the exact same time, so you can binge watch. So things are constantly changing, constantly shifting. So everything I've just told you, forget about it when you walk out the door, because it's all fake. So with that being said, I want to open this up for questions. If you guys have any questions, you want me to elaborate more on something, I'll try to give you more bad advice. Yes?
I may be wrong, but I saw a documentary on Netflix.
You're wrong. Next question. No, I'm joking.
Called, A Nightmare in Red, White, and Blue.
Yeah.
Were you A Nightmare in Red, White, and Blue. Were you in that?
Yes, yes.
And a big topic of the documentary was certain horror films relate to certain fears of certain decades. How do you think Saw relates to the last decade and the fears that it preys on?
I'm not smart enough to answer that question. You're right. What he's basically saying, there was a documentary, you can find it on Netflix, it's called Nightmares in Red, White, and Blue. And they basically looked at a bunch of different filmmakers and talked about how, if you go back to the very beginning of horror films, they were basically commentaries on the time, what the world was going through, be it the Cold War, World War II. Saw, for me, I'm gonna have a much different answer than James Wan would have, or Kevin Greuter, David Hackle, who all directed the Saw movies. I tell you what, I had a weird experience when Saw 2 came around and Saw 3. Both of my parents were diagnosed with cancer at the same year. My mom was diagnosed with breast cancer, my dad had leukemia. And so it had a whole different thing for me, because for me, it was about appreciate your life, appreciate what you have. And it literally was as literal as Jigsaw was saying, because he was like, all these people wake up every morning and take everything they have for granted. Yet there are people out there that want nothing more than to survive and live on, and they don't have that luxury. So when I got Saw and this thing happened to me and my family, it changed my entire thing, what I was making it for, because that's what it was for me. It was about appreciating your life. Now, if you ask James Wan that question, he might tell you it's about Guantanamo Bay or something like that and the torture that goes on. But for me, it was literally as simplistic as what I was going on in my own personal life. Now, when you look at the Begotten is a conspiracy theory. That is a commentary. That's a commentary on the NSA. That's a commentary on government surveillance. It's a commentary on the brainwashing and things like that. So that actually does, but I'm not even hiding that. That's what the whole fucking trailer is that. But yeah, if you go back and look at the old monster movies back in the day, in the 40s and 50s, they were commentaries on what was going on at that time. The paranoia, the fear, all of the Cold War, World War II, that's all that. That for me, I'm not that complicated. I'm actually very simple. But that was a great question.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You talk about everything in Hollywood changing all the time and to not listen. Thank you. to what you're saying, how do you find it best to stay most relevant with how you're being creative and to stay up to date?
Well, this is what kills me is I'm not relevant. I try to stay by using the Instagram and the Twitter and the Facebook, and so I stay relevant and say stupid like what I ate last night, which doesn't really matter to anybody. It's hard. I mean, it's hard because you guys, like I said, are a lot smarter than I am. I have no idea new technology. I'm not talented. I just surround myself with talented people. And so you guys at least have the luxury, and this is what's amazing with Full Sail is current. Full Sail always, I was walking around the campus and I was actually mad. I was mad at all of you because you have all these cranes everywhere and cameras and new editing equipment. And it's amazing because they are keeping you guys current and up to date. I'm 13 years ago. And I mean, if you look at what's happened in 13 years, I mean, in the 13-year period of when I left here to what's actually happened now, I don't know anything. I don't know how to use any of it. I don't know how to use After Effects. I don't know how to load a camera. I don't know how to do any of that. I surround myself, how do I stay relevant? I surround myself with relevant people. I hire Full Sail students to come in and make me look good. And you know what, seriously, I think in my last 2 movies, at least in the last one I did, 30% were Full Sail students. And that was not because I went out and said, let me have Full Sail students. It literally was. The Full Sail students were the one that were in Los Angeles that had the best credentials, not meaning the resume, meaning that if I talked to them about, do you know X, Y, and Z, they all knew it and could school me on it. So they were the ones on my set. And so I think that's kind of crazy. We were actually joking about it because one of the guys that produced my last thing was a Full Sail student. And we were literally looking at all the Full Sail students on the set. And I think it was 30 or 40%. It was, again, not because I went out and hired Full Sail students, that they were the best ones for the job. So I don't stay relevant. I hire relevant people. Yes?
I understand how you can get nervous about the money situation and you're hoping for that breakout moment. How do you deal with that type of pressure? Because you kind of go from, low budgets, not finding anything, but then all of a sudden you get a name like Saw. How do you cope with that kind of pressure?
When I started, low budget meant $10 million, $8 million. Now low budget means $50,000. And one thing I was talking about the industry changing, in my experience, this is not everyone, you now see these movies being made for $100,000. There was a movie called Monster that came out, and it was the guy who's directing the new Godzilla. That movie was made for pennies, and you see what this guy was able to accomplish. And it really hurts people like myself because I don't know how to do anything he's doing. Guy came from a visual effect background, can do sky replacements and create monsters and do whatever, and he does it in his garage or his basement or whatever. And then there's someone like me that has no comprehension on any of that. And so it's changed the landscape. By doing that is people now expect, well, anyone should be able to make, if this guy can make a movie for $100,000 or Jason Blum can make Insidious for $1 million and it makes $200 million, that's what we should all make movies for. And so in turn, what's happened was when I made Saw 2, I think it was $2.5 million, and then Saw 3 was $5 million, and Saw 3 I think the highest one was $10 million, I believe. And that was low budget. That was considered independent low budget. Now low budget's, $100,000 to $1 million. And it's hard because I am seeing less and less movies made in that $10 to $15 million range. It's now, $1 to $2 million or $100 million. That middle thing is gone. I'll explain why. Let's just use Saw, for example. Let's say, I'm going to make up a movie, okay? Movie X costs $10 million to make. You spend $10 million on it. Well, you have to promote that movie. And so for people in Orlando to know it's here, you have to buy ad space. You have to buy radio ads, you have to buy bus stop ads, you have to buy ads on MTV. And so what the average is 2 times the budget. So you spend $20 million on a $10 million movie. So now you're up to $30 million. You got to think that the studio only makes back half of that because half of it goes to distributors. So you now have the task of basically making $50 or $60 million you have to make back on this movie on a theatrical landscape. Or you make a movie for a lot less money, you don't put it out theatrical, and you put it on Netflix and Hulu. So a lot of movies now don't go theatrical like they used to. In fact, my last 3 movies have not gone theatrical for that exact reason. It's like it's a game of numbers, and you never can forget. And this is over the first 4 years of Hollywood, I struggled with this thing, and I started wars, I burned bridges, and only now at 35, I'm starting to grasp it. Hollywood is not there for you to be creative. It's a business. It is called the movie business for a reason. You can never forget the business part. I don't blame Lionsgate for dumping Repo. Why? Because it's a business. Who wants to go see a weird cult rock opera with Paris Hilton? No one. Well, I did. So wait, the question is, they do numbers and cents. They do a calculator and say, let's look at the landscape of all of America. Who actually wants to see this? Isn't it worth us spending $20 million to promote a movie that our projections say it's only going to make $10 million? No. So we're going to only put it on a couple of screens and let it go out, in video and DirecTV and whatever. They're hedging their bets on doing this, and so I think you gotta look at that. So I think your question though was not even that. Your question was the difference between a low budget and a small budget. I've never really had a big budget. The most I've ever worked with is 10 million. The less I've ever worked with is like 2.5. So I've stayed in that range. But you look at someone like James Wan, who did a $1 million movie, and now he just did $250 million movie of Fast and Furious. So that's something I aspire to be at some point. Not yet though.
Thank you.
Yes. Yes. Over here to the far. Yes, please.
Hello. Thank you for coming out here, first of all. Also, when you were creating Saw 3, 3, and 4, did you often look back and watch Saw 1 over and over again to make sure it related?
I saw it one time before I made Saw 2. Well, because again, first off, it was when I saw the first Saw, it was crazy because I knew nothing about it. There was no hype around it. I think Saw came out in October, and I saw it in June. Way before any of the hype, way before the commercials hit, way before anything. So I didn't know about a twist. I didn't know any of this. Spoiler alert, it's the dead guy on the floor. I'm sorry. But I had no idea any of this. So I watched it one time and I was blown away. And I have a thing that I do now. If I see a movie and I love it, I'll never watch it again. Like Amelie is my favorite movie, I'll never watch it again. Because when I revisit movies that I love, I find something I don't like about it. And I want to keep that magical memory. I'll give you an example. I watched Highlander again. I used to love Highlander as a kid. I watched it again and I literally was just shaking my head the entire time. Like the lines, the visual effects, it was just not what I remember. Yeah, it was rough. It's a rough thing to sit through. And I think that, so I try to, if I see a movie I really respect or admire, I try to stay away from it for a long time. Still to this day, I don't think I've even watched Star Wars again since I was a kid for that exact reason, because it holds such a magical thing to me. I don't want to go back and revisit it and find flaws or ask questions or whatever. So I'm weird like that. So with Saw 1, I never really watched it again after that original time. If it's on TV, I'll watch it for a few minutes if I see it on TV, but I didn't go back and kind of pick it apart because I also wanted to do something different with Saw. I didn't want to go and just repeat exactly what James Wan did. Yes, over here.
I know when you went through Full Sail, they didn't have a creative writing program, but I'm in it now, and there's so much deviation on forms and types of scripts that are being put out. My question is, what kind of script writing techniques keep new writers from getting picked up?
Keep what?
Keep them from getting picked up. What are the classic rookie mistakes that keep people out?
Well, I do all the classic rookie mistakes, and I'll give you an example. Like, one thing they're always going to say is show, don't tell. That's one of the things, but I do that all the time. You know what? There's a favorite writer of mine, this guy named Alex Litvak, and he wrote the reboot of Predators. He wrote a couple of movies, but his scripts are so fun to read because you have to think. I don't want to read a script and just basically say, this is Dan. Dan sits on a couch. Dan turns on the TV. The TV says this. I'll give you an example. A bad script will say, introduce a villain, and it says, meet Jamie. Jamie has long dark hair and a black trench coat. He is evil. And then it'll say whatever Jamie says. This guy, Alex Litvak, says, he's one of the coolest writers. He'll write and he'll say, sit down, grab a cup of coffee because things are about to get real. I'm about to introduce you to someone. You want his name? Use his name. That's all I'm going to tell you about this guy. Why? Because he's cooler than you, has more money than you, and someone you only aspire to be. Watch out, this guy has a gun. Like, that's what he says, and I'm immediately engaged. Like, his action sequence will say, like, before an action sequence, you don't have to write a page and a half to describe a car chase. What he'll write is, he'll be like, watch out, son, it's about to get real. Boom, you see that? It just happened. You weren't paying attention. Cars went everywhere, got, whatever. And that's awesome because it engaged me as a reader, and I'm laughing at it, as opposed to a lot of scripts that I read from first-time writers are trying to tell you everything, trying to say, like, I'm working on a project now with these two first-time writers that I'm producing, and it's an action film. And they put every single hit, punch, scrape, bullet. I don't care. Like, if go back to Braveheart, I used to have Rob Toscani as a teacher here in screenwriting, and he brought up in class one day Braveheart, and he brought the big battle sequence in Braveheart and showed what it actually was in the script. I think it says, there was a battle. It was epic. And that was it. That's all you needed to know. I think that for me now, screenplays are about character. It's making sure your characters resonate and jump off the page. But I'll tell you one thing, I will put a script down on the first 3 pages if it's not formatted correctly, or there's spelling errors or grammar errors, and I'm the worst speller in the world. I mean, I've not only do I not know another language, I don't even know the English language. I've not mastered it. So my script goes to 10 people before I send it to my agents or managers to go through it. But I'll literally see scripts where the formatting is all wrong. And I'll look at it and I'll be, okay, they're not taking their craft seriously, so I'm not gonna take them seriously, and I'll put the script down. It might be a great script, but after 2 pages, I stop reading it. So the other thing is this, length. I want to see a script that's no more than 105, 106 pages. Recently, someone gave me a script that was 132, and that went straight into my trash can. I just won't read it. I don't care how good it is, unless you're Paul Thomas Anderson. I'm not going to read a 132-page epic, whatever, about a romantic comedy. Edit your stuff and then bring it back to me. I don't want to waste 3 hours on this thing that can't happen. The last thing is knowing your budget. If you're going to make a Reservoir Dogs-esque movie, you don't put it in 65 locations with massive visual effects going off. You have to write for the budget you're trying to get. So if I'm going to go to a producer, and I know this producer only makes $1 to $3 million movies, you make a $1 to $3 million script. You don't make a script that literally has aliens and other worlds and prosthetics going everywhere. So it's writing for what your budget is. Yes.
Hello. Also, thank you for coming.
Of course. I agree with what you're saying. It actually brings back...
Sorry, brain fart for like 2 seconds.
He can't look at you.
They grind networking into our brains over and over again. Who are the people that we have to actually keep close in our circle of network?
Full Sail, okay, I'm gonna, again, be very honest and blunt, and some of the things Full Sail is gonna like and not like. When people ask me about my experience at Full Sail, I don't talk about the cameras, I don't talk about the lights, I don't talk about, learning all the technical stuff. That was great, and it provided a knowledge base in my head. It wasn't about that, it was about networking. And people say, it sounded like a cliche when I was at school. I didn't get it until about the last 2 or 3 months. And then I realized that really quickly I knew who was gonna make it and who wasn't, based on the motivation, their level of follow through, all of that. And I found these 5 or 6 people that became my support system. And we all went out to LA together. And those people right now are all still working. Hunter Vi, who I know has been doing Q&As on Facebook. So Hunter was my editor of my first short film here. Hunter and I stayed very, very close all through Los Angeles. We moved out here together. We lived together in the same apartment. Hunter went on to edit The Shield, Sons of Anarchy, The Walking Dead, The Mist. He just finished Mob City. The guy's amazing. And he has helped me through some of the hardest times I've had in Los Angeles because of my relationship with him here. Rich Perexta, Shaw Mason, all these people that I went to school with became my support system going to Los Angeles. And if I didn't have them, I wouldn't have made it, not at all. Because you knew that we were going through something together. Also, which I think is crazy about this Hall of Fame thing, which is kind of taking me by surprise, every year I come back to Full Sail and I see these Hall of Fame people. And I've now forged bonds with them even after Full Sail, and these guys are helping me realize what I'm doing next, the next movies I'm doing. And I think that the connections you make here are invaluable, more so to me than the knowledge I actually learned from the cameras and the lights and all of that. Because like I said, that changes. That'll change in 5 years. But the relationships, they won't. So my advice is, if you want to be a filmmaker, find a DP here, find a camera op here, find a lighting tech here, find all these people here, and become friends with them, because you guys will help each other when you leave here. Yeah.
So you like conspiracy stuff.
You mentioned yes, I'm a member of the Illuminati.
Yeah. You mentioned aliens and things like that, government cover-ups. I know Roswell and Area 51 have been overplayed, they're the stereotype. How would you approach something like that? Not do it. No, I'm joking. The same way I did the haunted house thing. I wanted to figure out a new way to make a haunted house movie, so I reversed it backwards and said it was not about the, here's an example. If I were to do an alien movie, that's basically what you're asking, how would I approach a Roswell or something?
I tried it with the Barrens, and I didn't have the resources to do what I necessarily wanted, but it would be the same idea. Most times if there's a movie about aliens, Area 51, that is in the forefront. It's about the aliens and the characters are second. I would make a character study about friends or people, and the aliens are the C story. Not the A story or the B story, it's the C story. And why is, I would make their relationships believable, I would make what they're going through believable, and I would have the aliens be in the far back, which, so when it hits you, you believe everything else around them, thus you believe the aliens in Area 51. And I think that, to me, when I try to attack any horror movie, I say the horror has to be secondary. The story has to work as a thriller or as a drama outside of the horror elements in it. So in that case, I would say the movie has to work completely without the aliens in it. You could take the aliens out, or Roswell or Area 51 out, and it would still have to work as a movie that you'd want to see. When you put the aliens in, it adds it to a whole other level. So that's how I approach any movie. That's probably what I would do there. Yeah.
I'm just curious about the climate around the film The Begotten, especially with, the government and the conspiracies and all that. Are you receiving flack, cease and desist, things like that?
No, because, mine is very tongue-in-cheek. Not tongue-in-cheek, but what everything that's in that trailer is out there on the web. It's all real things. It's all things you can Google, you can find. No, it is, and there's been conspiracy movies since the dawn of time. You go back recently, there was Enemy of the State, and there was all of these type of things. Conspiracy with Mel Gibson. I think it's a fascinating topic. For me, why I love conspiracy so much is it's an idea that you can do something fantastical. It is a fantasy movie that is based in some bit of reality. So if I make a movie about this nefarious program, you can go read about the nefarious program and find it's based in some sort of reality. No, I will take the liberty of changing it and making it scary and adding things to it. But no, nothing like that.
But studios are being receptive to this?
I haven't really done much with it. It went out to one person so far. We just finished it. However, if I'm dead in the next year, you guys know who to turn to.
Please know we have time for one more question.
Guys, we actually have a question from the overflow room.
Okay.
Folks that
Yes,
make
please.
it in here. This question comes from Brittany Mann, and she asked for advice for any aspiring actors or actresses who want to be knowledgeable about the industry.
For actor or actresses?
Correct.
That's hard. I don't really know. What I would recommend to anybody is get on set. Just get on set, because it's not the glamorous lifestyle that I thought it was going to be. It is what you always hear. It's hurry up and wait. You sit there for 90% of your day and do nothing. And let's just look at when we're going to be shooting Abattoir, it's going to be 100 degrees out every single day, and the majority of our stuff is exterior. And there are bugs, and there are snakes, and there's literally a snake wrangle that has to go through everywhere we're filming and clear the area of snakes before we go there. It's not a glamorous lifestyle. However, get on set. Be there, be hanging out on set, be hanging around the directors, the producers, the ADs. For actors, though, I would do the same thing. My advice would be the same thing. And I'm going to end this kind of talk with kind of like my standing on a soapbox. The only one holding you back, and this is where my life has changed. I used to be angry, I used to be bitter, I used to be mad at everybody. But I realized the only one holding me back is me. You guys have the same exact opportunities as I had when I was here. You guys have the same abilities as all the filmmakers working in Los Angeles. The only thing holding you back is your own drive and ambition to follow through with it. I'm not successful because I'm creative. I'm not successful because I slept my way to the top. I did, but that's a different story. No, I'm successful because I believed in myself, even when no one else did. And when everyone told me I was not going to make it, I was a failure, my short film sucked, my answer to them was, screw you, I'm going to do it anyway. And instead of talking about doing it, I did it. I didn't talk about making short films, I went out and did it. I didn't talk about making music videos, I stood up and lied until I made it happen. And I think that if you want to make a movie, don't talk about it, go do it. You ask about connections, go find a DP. Go find, because there's some here. Go rent a camera and return it later. Go buy it from Best Buy and return it later. Use your facilities and everything you have around you and go do it. Same thing with an actor. If you're trying to get noticed as an actor, make an amazing demo reel. You're at Full Sail right now. You have directors here. Ask the director to shoot a scene with you. It can work for everybody. It can work for the cinematographer who's trying to get a reel, the director who's trying to showcase his directing, and the actor who wants to be an actress. Get together. And I think that's what you have to do. But No one is holding you back except yourself. And as long as you're not scared to fail and you embrace failing, you're gonna make it. And you'll be directing Saw 18 in space. Well, actually, I want to direct that one. By that point, I'll be back on the Saw universe. But that's
You'll be a cyborg by then.
exactly. But that's the only thing holding you back right now. And you're in the best place that you can make these things happen. And I didn't realize it until after I left Full Sail. And I realized the connections I made, the knowledge I have, you guys are here right now. And it's going to be only what you make of it and the drive and ambition you put into it. So guys, forget everything I just said when you walk out the room because it's all bullshit anyway. So thanks a lot.